Okay. Oh, good morning. So last week I shared with you an insight that I had at the retreat a few weeks ago that was this heavenly vision. I mean, almost literally outside of my window, this lit cross on a hill that was shining light into the darkness and the density of the fog that was there, which represented to me that divine consciousness is so bright that it can cut through the collective experience and reveal the light, right? And we talked about how we are expressions of the light. We talked about how, and I had the board here with the whole board was the infinite universe, and we are a point at which the universal divine comes into unique expression as each one of us. So we are that love. We are that. All of it is all around us and within us. All those divine qualities, love and peace and joy and wisdom and harmony. We can also think about it in terms of growing to contain more of the divine light. So we talked about this yesterday in our affirmative prayer workshop, and we talked about how, this is where we begin with affirmative prayer, with opening to the consciousness of who we truly are, and having and bringing ourselves into alignment with that spiritual truth that we are. That's where we begin, and then from that place, we do the affirmation. We affirm our good. So we're going to also meet this afternoon, a little practice session, those of you who are there. And of course, the master teacher, Jesus, told us that you are the light of the world. You are the light of the world. You didn't say, well, there's this little spark within you that if you fan it, maybe someday, if you work real hard at it, you'll never get as bright as me, but maybe you'll be bright. No, you are the light of the world. Go shine. Shine it. And boy, I can't think of a better time that in engaging and shining our light, right? Because there does seem to be darkness in the world right now. Wars, famine, horrible famine, division, so many lies all over that we're all having a tough time deciphering what's up and what's down. And it causes anxiety and fear and anger. But one thing I know is that here in unity, the eternal truth is that darkness in and of itself is not a power. It's not a power. There's not a presence of darkness. It's just the absence of light, right? So you think about walking into a room, a dark room, what's the first thing you do? You want to go turn the light on, and you flip the switch. And the darkness doesn't say, well, I don't feel like leaving today. I'm just going to stick around. No, it doesn't fight, right? It just vanishes. It just vanishes. So that's the power that you and I have within us. In particular, when we bring our lights together, it's incredibly powerful. So that's what I want to talk about today, how to activate that light that we are, and in so doing, dispel some darkness. Ready to play with me in this? All right, let's have our first slide. Light activation key number 1. Remember who you are and who others are. So we begin here, always. The first way that we can activate our light is to remember that we are light and that so is everyone else. You know, and we are divinely human beings. Linda Martellowitz talks about this. We're 100% divine, 100% human. And, you know, this divinely human being that we all are, we're all on a journey of awakening. We are all on a journey, even though most people don't realize it. They're on a journey of awakening. And sometimes that journey has twists and turns. Sometimes that journey is arduous. Sometimes it looks like that journey is taking us deeper into the darkness for a time. I don't know anyone who's had a journey that is straightforward and easy. That's just the way it is, right? We're on this journey, and on this journey, we all make mistakes. All of us, we all make mistakes. Hopefully we're learning from our mistakes, but we're all making mistakes. And this is where forgiveness plays a very important part in awakening to our true self and activating our light. Forgiveness of ourselves and of others. And, you know, first and foremost, we are divine beings expressing. We are that one light and life and love of the universe. That's who we are. But we forget that. Even those of us who know better, we forget, right? We forget, and when we forget, it's easy to get pulled into the human dimension, the denseness of the human dimension, that fog. So that's where forgiveness comes in. That's where forgiveness becomes really healing, because when we remember, wait a second, who am I again? Now we're opening ourselves, we're opening our capacity to be that instrument for divine love and healing light. So forgiveness is that process that can help us remember and be that presence. And that's really important to remember now, when it seems there's this tendency for people to sort of wrap themselves in their self-righteousness, demonize others, you know, lash out in anger. It's important to remember that. So Father Richard Rohr talks about this. Do you know who Father Richard Rohr is? Yeah, it's this Franciscan priest, mystic. I'm sure he's a Christian mystic, written many, many books. He talks about this time and how deep down we know there's something more. Deep down we know we can do better. Deep down we know at our core that we're all emanations of the same light. And he says, disappointment leads to transformation. It helps us recognize our false self is not real. And that leads to discovering our true self, our light. So we can think about this time as an inflection point that can give rise to transformation. This is the moment, an inflection point that can give rise to transformation. That's how we want to hold it. So the first step is to remember who you are and who others are. And we have an affirmation for this first step that we can say together. Let's say this together. I remember I am a radiant expression of divine light, and so is everyone else. All right. Activation, number one. Okay, our activation key number two, the next slide, is choose love over fear. The Course in Miracles. How many familiar with the Course in Miracles? Many people, yeah. It says in there that everything is either an expression of love or a cry for love. Now, on the surface, that seems ridiculous. What? How can that be? But when we really look at it, we just talked about how at our core, we are this divine love. We are this divine light. But we forget, right? And if someone identifies with only their human self, and maybe they've been trained all their life to look outside of themselves for their good, and to think of themselves as separate from source, separate from each other, separate from their good, and feels that they need to compete with others, and maybe this person has some subconscious patterns, some past trauma. Who doesn't? Then you can see how this person that the only thing that they know is to fight. But at our core, right? Remember, at our core, we know that we're divine light. At our core, we are craving. See, when we forget who we are and we react in fear and we're living in fear, we still have this craving inside of us because it's like an emptiness, right? If we all are expressions of light and we're forgetting that, then there's this emptiness. So we're craving it. We're craving the experience of love, to know love, to express love, to be the light that we are. And so that person can just be expressing as a cry for love. So again, this is important to remember when we hear people speaking from a place of hate, or when we witness violence, which I really believe all violence comes from feelings of powerlessness. It's a cry for love. It's a cry for love. So every day we have two choices. We can either see the person as evil and respond with fear, react in fear, or we can see the love that they're sleeping. That George Harrison song. There's love there that's sleeping in everyone. So if we recognize that and we respond in love, that opens it up. Now we're in this healing energy, right? We're in that energy of healing, because fear just closes us off and we defend ourselves and we can, react out of there. But love creates this connection and creates compassion. Now, this doesn't mean that we ignore injustice or that we don't do anything about it. We refuse to do anything about it. On the contrary, we must. But we are refusing to fight darkness with darkness. Right? It's like that thing that Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. said so well, is that darkness cannot drive out darkness. Only light can do that. Hate cannot drive out hate. Only love can do that. He was pretty successful leading that movement, so I think he knows what he's talking about there. Also, a little kindness, as Karen was singing about, a little kindness and compassion can go a long way, I remember one day when I was at the airport, RDU, I was flying up to Ithaca to visit my brother-in-law after my sister had just passed. And the flight was delayed. What a surprise. What flight isn't delayed these days? People are going, when is the next one? And then it got delayed again. And everybody's going, I'm going to miss my connection. And, the heat is starting to rise and people are getting upset. And then finally, the flight was canceled altogether. How many times has this happened to you? It's happened to me twice. And of course, everybody is just so upset and they're rushing to the counter. This poor woman behind the counter is just receiving all of this anger and do something about this. And I don't know, they expect her to manifest a plane out of thin air or something. I think I was expecting that too. And, she was just flummoxed. She was just about to explode. And, as people are lining up to go get their flight, rebooked, I was kind of in the back. So I had time to do some deep breathing, some affirmative prayer work, right? Divine order, everything is in divine order today. Everything's harmony, calling forth harmony. So by the time I get to the counter, I somehow have the presence of mind to say, gee, this must be a really difficult day for you. It must be so hard. I see how hard you're working, and I really appreciate you. And her eyes filled with tears, and her whole body just relaxed. And, it kind of shifted the energy of the people around, right? They were like, okay. It sort of shifted everybody's energy. And then I got up there, she finally said, let's see how we can get you to Ithaca. And she did. I had to fly into Syracuse, but, it was not that far, so I got there. You just never know what a small act of love can ripple out in ways that, we just don't know. We just don't know. It ripples out. Every act of kindness we share, we add a little bit of light into the world. So let's say our affirmation for activation number 2, which is, I choose love over fear. Love and kindness are my guides. Good. Okay, now our light activation key number 3 is helping other possibilities emerge. So at this same retreat, I heard the word hope described as helping other possibilities emerge. Isn't that great? So it kind of takes the hope out of being passive, and hope can be active. We can be active hope. Isn't that fabulous? Yeah. And so the place we start with that, right, is that we, first of all, have to know other possibilities exist. There are other possibilities. There's more possibilities here. Let me envision. Let me use the power of my imagination to envision other possibilities. Can I envision a world where people cooperate, where there's kindness, where there's love? Let me envision that, which is what we do every year at World Day of Prayer. And this year was no exception. We did it again. Now, once a year, it doesn't cut it, right? We need to do it more than once a year. We need to do this on a regular basis. To hold in our minds and envision a peaceful, loving world. What does it look like? What are the ramifications of that, the rippling effect of that? What if there's more light in this world? What if people are kind and can talk to each other and there's cooperation? What would that be like? And then we help it emerge. We work towards it. We move forward in the direction of that possibility. We help it emerge, helping other possibilities emerge. And also we want to see the kindness and the acts of kindness and compassion that are already there, because there are a lot. And I got to shout out to Maria. And Maria and Carla actually are ones who always notice where the kindness and the generosity and the compassions are. They're always like sharing messages of, oh, look at this kind act of kindness. I think that's a really important thing to go, oh, it really is here. Right? We just need to open it, and every time we pay attention to it and acknowledge it, that opens our minds for more possibilities of that. Also gives us good examples to use. So that's part of it too. All right, so let's affirm for our activation key number 3 is, as the presence of light, I help other possibilities emerge. All right, so this week, I want you to think about how you help other possibilities emerge, how you are that hope in action, how you share your light. And next week, I'm going to invite you up right here to come and share it so that we can all experience it, so that we can all share in that and work through some ideas, share some ideas about how you're doing that, either how you're doing that or how you're going to set your intention to do it, right? And then we get it from each other, and then okay, I can do it that way. I can be that presence in that way, okay? And so this week, think about how to say this in a concise way, so that we can get everybody who wants to share up here sharing. And I know, every time I do this and I invite you up, there is so much wisdom in this room, and there are so many wonderful experiences that you share, and so many insights that you have, that when we share it together, it really brings up the whole thing. So I can't wait to have that experience. So this is what it means. Really, it's what it means to be the light. We are not ignoring the darkness, but we're declaring by our very presence that the light is stronger. That the light is stronger, right? The light is stronger. So let's look, the next slide has a summary of the keys that we are looking at. Remember who you are and who everyone else is. Offer forgiveness to yourself and others. Yeah, go ahead and take a picture of that. Yeah. So you can remember through the week. In every interaction, choose love over fear. That small acts of kindness make a big difference. And 3, help other possibilities emerge. Right? This is how we be that light on the hill. That radiant beam, and we add this together and it radiates out, and the darkness begins to fade away, and the fog begins to lift. All right? So we do that? All right, namaste. Hi, it's Reverend Victoria here. I'm at Unity Center of Peace with our house band, Bright Matter.
Hello.
Yeah, and if this video has inspired you or empowered you or opened your heart, opened your consciousness, or even just given you hope, we ask that you support what we're doing here by making a donation today, going to unitychapelhill.org or clicking the link below. And we thank you.
Thank
Thank you.